Hello, thank you for joining me today, folks, as I begin one of the most requested shows on the channel, Monster. Urasawa's Monster. Yeah, highly requested, and it's really quite exciting to finally jump into it. It's essentially the perfect mix. You know, it's a perfect mix of one of the most highly requested and one that I really wanted to watch myself, right? Because if you're new to the channel at this point, thank you for joining me, of course. I don't really go into anything blindly, right? Perhaps some of the bigger channels, and I'm speaking of channels that are like 500,000 subs plus, going towards 1 million subs even. Those channels have a different approach, of course, right? They do have to end up going into a lot of things blindly because of just the magnitude of their subscriber base, right? There is a lot of people to please. So, there it's more of like a factory setting, isn't it? Pumping out content, all kinds of content, and a lot of it. But that's not how I approach it. Anything I do on the channel, it has to be something I'm actually, legitimately interested in myself, right? Before I put it on any poll or on a list. Anything that you might see on a list, be it on Patreon, here on YouTube, anything on a watch list is there because I'm interested in it. But yeah, I know that it's a dark psychological thriller, right? It's meant to be really quite grounded. It's been described as Death Note for adults, right? It's much more mature than Death Note, but it does kind of share a lot of the same themes, perhaps, or some of the same themes. But yeah, the notion of this being a much more mature take on some of those themes is really quite exciting to me. And the thing is, there's actually another Urasawa adaptation on the horizon. It's actually really close, I think, right? Pluto on Netflix, and that, oof. I saw one trailer of that, the first trailer, and I was like, yes, give me that. So yeah, it'll be exciting. I'll be doing this and that at the same time at some point, right? Because this is a long anime, folks. So let's strap in long anime. And also, if you are interested in full-length, timer-based full-length, of course, or perhaps early access to the next few episodes right now, consider checking out the Patreon page and, possibly supporting the channel. If you're interested, the links are in the description and the pinned comment. And of course, links to things like social media as well. But yeah, I think that should do it for the intro, folks. I'm really, really quite excited for this. So let's just jump into it. Here's Monster Episode 1. And they worship the beast, saying, who is like the beast? Huh? And who can fight against it? Ho ho ho! How about that for an opening? How about that for an establishing shot? Ominous.
素晴らしいオペだったよ。ヘル、ドクターテンマ。健三天馬は天才だという
ことを
改めて確認したよ。
いえ、皆さんのおかげです。ありがとうございます。
Soft-spoken, humble. Okay. Wow, fascinating opening though. Yeah. A lot of life and death in this place, huh? Oh. Oh no. Great opening. You really get an idea of the tone already. I mean, that's an incredible establishing shot. Ooh. I'm already digging the mood. I'm feeling it. That oppressive opening shot, establishing shot of the hospital. See the horns? I mean, it kind of resembles horns, doesn't it? Dr. Tenma. Dusseldorf, Germany, 1986. I like it. I'm already liking the look of this. Let him sleep.
役柄が逆でしょ？
エイは
キスで目覚めるのは私みたいなお姫様のはずよ。こら、ダメよ起きて。あなたのニュースよ。
ペラ歌手ローゼンバッハさんですが、術後の経過は順調のようです。手術に当たったアイスラー記念病院のハイネマン院長が先ほど記者会見を行いました。
手術自体は予定通り、クリッピングも非常にうまくいきました。多くのファンを持つローゼンバッハさんですが、
No mention of Dr. Tenma.
素晴らしいわケンゾ。
僕のニュースじゃなく君のパパのニュース。
それ
Interesting.
はそうだけど、でもそれもあなたがゆうべ父のチームで完璧な手術をしてくれたからよ。
His father's team.
父もきっと感謝してるわ。頑張ってケンゾ。父についていけば絶対に大丈夫。父が病院の理事長になるのは時間の問題だし、そしたらあなたもすぐに外科部長、ゆ
Ambitious.
くゆくは院長、そして私は院長夫人。幸せにしてよ。私に苦労は似合わないから。
相変わらず見事なオペだったよ。
As always.
天馬、
ありがとうございます。
その若さでチーフの座に座り、院長も外科部長も大のお気に入り。しかも院長の娘のハートまでときたもんだ。病院は政治の世界だからな。君だって院長にうまく利用されてることは分かってるんだろう。君が成功させたオペラ歌手の手術をさも自分がやったように。
Exactly. That's how I felt like.
君が出世したら俺のこともよろしく頼むよ。
You need people like Dr. Becker. Yeah.
亭主を返してよ。うちの人返してよ。あんたどうしてうちの人を手術してくれなかったんだ。
あなたは。
うちの人の方が早くこの病院に担ぎ込まれたのに、あんなオペラ歌手なんかより先に運び込まれたんだ。なのに後回しにしたんだ。なんで
Politics.
なんで
あの時確かに僕は工事現場で事故に遭ったトルコ人のオペに当たるところだった。
ドクターテンマ、
But on the other end, you have
君
this
はこっちじゃない。
opera singer.
第一手術室の方に行ってくれ。院長からのお達しだ。急いでくれ。
あの人を返せ。あの人を。
Well, this is going to do a number on him.
でね、そのドレス友達と奪い合いよ。
He's kind of like a sore thumb. He sticks out like a sore thumb, doesn't he?
私のものにしたから。
もし僕が出頭していたら、
Mm.
あのトルコ人のクラン家をなんとか助けることができたかもしれない。
Save the turtle.
やめてよ、食事中に。
しかし僕にどうしろって言うんだ。僕はただ院長の命令通りあのオペラ歌手のオペをしただけなんだ。僕に責任はない。そうだろう。
Hmm.
当たり前よ。人の命は平等じゃないんだもの。
Yeah, she's an interesting one, isn't she? Like I said, he's the one that really stands out here. Like a sore thumb. Sticks out. My god. This is so up my alley. It really is. Truly.
あの屋敷か。
はい、通報者は隣人です。
それが
先日東ドイツから亡命してきたリーベルト氏の住居だそうです。
面倒なことになるぞ。
Yeah, it was on the news earlier, right? Oh. Whoa. Oh god. Not the children.
ひでえ。
誰かいるぞ。
Oh my god. She's like traumatized.
少年1名重体です。
Oh, okay, maybe. Yeah, I was gonna say maybe.
両親は即死です。強盗か何からしいですけど。
分かった。
Let's
あと
see.
5分以内に病院に到着するよ。
Ava's.
結婚式の日取りは日本のご両親には
Checks out
連絡したのかね。いい機会だからゆっくり海外旅行を楽しんでいただくのもいいんじゃないか。
そうよ、我が家でご招待するんだから。
I was just gonna say, you gonna pay
あ
for
りが
it?
とうございます。院長に何かある
Yeah,
までお世話に
sometimes
なって
that's
し
not
まい
maybe a good thing, right?
それが今やアイスラー記念病院の若手医師ナンバーワン。
He's been snatched
と
up.
ころで健三、今は君がやっているくも膜下出血後の脳血管連縮の研究だが、すまんがその研究はキャンセルだ。
Just like that.
次の欧州救急医学会総会で私がシンポジストとして発表することになってね。君に走行をまとめてもらいたいんだ。いやー、しかし今日の昼間は参ったよ。
どうなさったのお父様。
うさんくさい民間団体が病院に詰めかけてきてね。
Is he talking
先日の
about
オペラ歌手の手術に関して騒ぐんだ。先に運び込まれたトルコ人の怪我人を後回しにしたと。我々の手続きには何ら問題はない。
Of course not.
そうだろ。
はい。
まったく彼らは医者をボランティアか何かと勘違いしてるんだよ。我々は人の命を救う以前に学級の
Okay, Tenma.
そうだろ。
He's got a lot going on inside that head of his. Hey man, I'm digging the score already. Woo! Again. The way they present the hospital. Woo.
今の男の子の双子の妹です。
外傷
ありません。ただ精神的ショックが
Yeah.
大きいようで。
Man,
None
poor
like-
baby.
殺してドクター・テンマ
And I keep thinking about the title of the anime as well. Monster, eh?
これは難しいな。
You're the man for the job.
銃弾が左中大脳動脈をかすめている。
遅れて申し訳ない。
Dr.
ド
Becker?
クターベッカー、当直のあなたがこんなに遅れてどうするんですか。
両側前頭部を解凍し、骨片の除去、汚染脳の除去を行う。そして慎重に銃弾を摘出。最後に損傷血管形成。
血圧120の80、脈拍92、良好です。
麻酔かかりました。
君はこっちじゃない。大至急第一手術室
Oh.
に行ってくれ。市長がロデッカー市長が脳血栓で倒れたんだ。
Jeez, talk about timing.
今ヘリでこっちに向かっている。院長からのお達しだ。
Straight from the top, eh? Okay, Tenma.
いやー、天馬君か。市長の件
He's so nonchalant and just, yeah, go ahead. You know, you got this.
連絡を取った。これで万全だろう。そっちはドクターベッカーに任せればいい。
Dr. Becker's
お言葉ですが、今開始するオペのクランケは銃弾が左中大脳動脈をかすめていて、
Ooh, okay, Tenma, I
大
like
変
it.
難しいオペになりそうなんです。でも僕にはやり遂げる自信があります。
市長は次の医療審査で我々の病院に対する助成金を
Crazy how?
大幅に
Crazy
増
how?
額することを約束しているんだ。奴にはまだ死んでもらっては困るんだよ。
Not all lives are made equal, right? That's how a lot of these people look at it.
市長がヘリポートに到着したぞ。
僕はただ院長の命令通りあのオペラ歌手のオペをしただけなんだ。僕に責任はない。
Yeah, I have a lot
当
to.
たり前よ。人の命は平等じゃないんだもの。
Is this it? Tenma?
してよ。
Ah,
あんたが手術してくれれば助かったんだ。あの人
take a stand. Take a stand, Tenma.
どうしたドクターテンマ。
The right choice, the moral choice.
僕は向こうでオペが待ってます。
待て、ドクターテンマ。
ドクター天馬。
Big choice, big choice.
大丈夫だ。頑張れ。僕が助けてやる。
There's going to be fallout. There's going to be fallout. But good for you, Tenma.
殺して殺して
Ooh, I have chills. Oh my god. Whew. Alright, folks. Episode 1. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's gripping. It really is. Compelling first episode. A strong first episode for sure. You know, it almost immediately pulled me in. And it really does help that a lot of the elements that are present, you know, within just this first episode are really right up my alley, right? And I'm sure for that reason, or that is one of the reasons many of you suggested that, you know, this could be the perfect anime for me, right? Because a lot of you know my taste, my style. So yeah. You're right. It is right up my alley for sure. Now, you know, like I said, I'm not going in completely blind. You know, I don't really do that. I need to have some interest before I actually kind of commit to putting something on a poll or in one of my, you know, watch lists. But yeah, this is a no-brainer given the things I've heard about the type of anime it is, the type of story that it might be. And you know, one thing that is so clear from this first episode and so impressive as well, you know, so unique, is the tone of it, right? The aspect of the tone that is really quite the standout is just how realistic it is. The depiction of these people, these really real people, real humans, right? Flaws and all. Really grounded in reality. Perhaps the most realistic anime I've seen ever. I mean, it's just the first episode, but just the first episode in itself really is doing a great job of showcasing that, right? You know, like I said, it's been compared to Death Note, but the thing I've heard a few times is that it's Death Note for adults, that it's a much more mature take on that genre, perhaps. And I certainly see it on display here. I mean, Death Note is really quite grounded, right? The setting and some of the people. But then, of course, there's the supernatural elements to Death Note. There's nothing like that here. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's nothing like that here. There's just real people. There's just terrible, real people, right? Not everyone's terrible, but yeah, it's realistic. The portrayal of these people is realistic, right? You can imagine these types of people out there because it's just so believable. People in high places, monsters in high places, right? And their offsprings. I mean, Ava, like father, like daughter. Oh my goodness. I'm kind of shocked that Kenzo or Tenma, Dr. Kenma, is engaged to her. They are yin and yang. I mean, she is so shallow, so materialistic. She's clearly attracted to his status. I mean, status is a major component of this first episode, right? So, like I said, like father, like daughter. So I'm just really perplexed as to how, you know, Kenzo ended up being engaged to her. I mean, listen, Kenzo is a bit of a pushover, you know. He's timid, non-confrontational. That's for sure. You know, it appears that even though he is quite, you know, quite good at his job, really quite the prodigy, quite the golden boy from the looks of it, he's not quite the you know, the final product, right? He's still learning. He's still growing. He really is quite naive, especially given the fact that he is in this industry or in this profession, right? It's almost as if he's kind of shutting out all of that political aspect, or he's tried his best to kind of ignore that and not engage and kind of look the other way, right? There's only so long you can do that for. And you see that by the end of this episode, by the conclusion of this episode, he does take a stance, right? He does take a stand. He does step in and for once is not being utilized as a puppet, as a pawn. You see a lot of that on display. You know, the director in Kenzo, he's just kind of under his thumb. I mean, he really is the type of person who's easily manipulated as well. And, you know, the whole notion of him kind of sticking out like a sore thumb, right? That all of these people just appear to be so terrible, right? And for that reason, you know, I believe it's really realistic, But he's not really quite that terrible himself, is he? He's a decent person. You can tell he's a decent person, but he's a little bit out of his depth in that sense, right? And again, him being a little bit naive about his own situation is certainly something that stands out in this episode as well. So for that reason, Dr. Becker, it's a good thing that he kind of brings that up to him, right? Yeah, sure, it might have been out of jealousy perhaps, but it's still a good thing that he brings that up to him. He puts it out there that he is being used, he is a puppet, right? And he's this obedient dog almost, right? The director's obedient dog. And you see that he even checks him, the director, Ava's father, he checks him at that one point. They kind of go over for tea, I believe, after establishing that they didn't do anything wrong and that everything was done by the book, right? Takes a sip, looks up at Tenma, and I believe the line of dialogue was, "Isn't that right?" And he's gauging how Tenma is going to react to this or respond to this. And as he expected, Tenma falls right in line and he agrees, right? But by the conclusion, Tenma steps out of that shadow, steps out of beneath that thumb, and he makes a choice. He makes that call, crucial call, that I believe is probably going to land him in a lot of trouble, right? Things are not going to be smooth for Tenma after making that choice. Because listen, if anything ends up happening to the mayor, if he potentially ends up passing on, if he ends up dying, you better believe that the director is not going to be taking credit this time, right? This time, Tenma is going to be the scapegoat, right? It's the opposite. You see in the beginning, after he performs that really impressive surgery, life-saving surgery for that really popular opera singer, all the credit is taken by the director. Big fancy press conference. Yes, me and my team executed this really, difficult procedure or surgery, and yes, came out with flying results. And our opera singer, who has a large fan base, right, according to the report, yeah, this is the director of that hospital. They are the ones who saved his life. So yeah, there's no mention of Dr. Tenma, right? Even though they've made it clear, as they do come out of the 6-hour procedure, that he was crucial. His skill is crucial in that surgery, yet buried, absolutely buried. Nothing about him, right? And you see that Ava doesn't really care about that either. She doesn't show any concern about Dr. Tenma, her fiancé, being mentioned at all, right? She's just, her head's in the stars. So yeah, I'm not even sure how much longer that type of relationship is going to last. I mean, like I said, yeah, the fallout of this choice is going to be tremendous. He might lose it all. He really could lose it all, especially if the mayor dies. So good on him for making that choice, right? And of course, there's a few things that kind of play into it. And, you see that once again, that scene, that incident of the wife of the Turkish man, the construction worker who died, that was kind of still in his mind. You could just tell, again, it had a major impact on him because he's a decent person. Though, I'm not saying he's perfect. You see that he does tend to hide behind, maybe, I don't know if excuses is the right term, but he does. You see at one point he has this moment that he needs Ava to tell him, I had no choice, right? I was just following orders, right? So he's, I'm not saying he's perfect, certainly far from it. But there's growth. Just in the span of this first episode, there is growth. The sad thing is this, moment of growth, this really commendable choice that he makes, it might actually end up being his downfall, right? And that in itself is quite telling in terms of the type of setting they're in. Ruthless, cutthroat. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on here. Let's kind of focus on the final shot. That traumatized young girl. Kill. Right, she said it twice earlier. Kenzo kind of leans in, and she said it then. I mean, it was clear that she's traumatized, deeply psychologically damaged at that point. Or there is deep psychological damage at that point, and this is really, really clear. The first time I get to see her, the first time I get to see her is on the or on the television, right? And they're talking about her family, the Liebert family, and the term they use is fled, but I'm sure many might call it defected, given the time era it's staged in. And how about the setting? How about the time era? Refreshing to have it be in Germany, right? And during that setting specifically as well, right? So this is a few years before the wall falls. So let's see how much of a role that plays, right? Does that have something to do with, this murder that just happened, right? The family, not the family. The son might be, I suppose it's a 50-50, though I believe he'll save him. He'll end up saving the child, her brother. And I do believe the mayor is going to end up dying because, that might be the catalyst for a potential downfall, right? Already from the looks of it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that played a part, them fleeing or defecting to the West. Listen, let's kind of throw out some theories. I suppose the most clear, or the easiest one is that indeed someone did break in. Maybe they had motives related to that defection or them fleeing to the West. But someone breaks in, kills the parents, shoots the son, but the daughter is left unharmed, almost as if she maybe wasn't present. Maybe she was hiding or in her room and she saw it through a crack in the door or something, something along those lines, that she saw all of this go down, and that really had this, deep psychological effect on her. That could be a possibility. The fact that they are focusing on these two children, let's not forget that. To me, it feels like they are going to play a role in this. Listen, to end off the first episode of the entire show, of the entire story, on that girl, especially her saying kill and reiterating the impact that incident has had already on her life. That's a big move. That's a big deal. So I do believe these children are going to be a major part of the story. So it'll be interesting to see the long-term psychological effects on these two children, right? Assuming the son or her brother also survives, they've certainly adequately set up the Dr. Tenma, the golden boy, right? Really quite impressive in his field. They've set up that, he should be able to save the boy, right? And he believes he is able to save the boy. He's got the skill set to do it. And he doesn't actually believe that anyone else at the hospital can pull this off, right? So that's another reason he cannot allow himself to move on from that and go to the mayor, because he doesn't trust anyone else there. He certainly doesn't trust someone like Dr. Becker. God damn, Dr. Becker. Terrible doctor, terrible. But yeah, in terms of the children, am I seeing the monster right at the end there? Is she going to end up being this monster, right? If you take it literally, right? I don't think it's a literal title, because everyone has the capacity to be a monster. There's a monster in all of us, right? Humans can be monstrous. Humans are capable of monstrous things, and you see a few of them on display throughout this episode. The director being one of them. So it could be the metaphorical monster as well that's within all of us, that is present within all of us, that all of us are capable of being that monster or tapping into that monster. But also the setup here does suggest that there could be a literal monster as well, And listen, I'm not saying that Dr. Tenma himself isn't capable of being a monster. Hell, yeah, I could totally see him kind of going down a slippery slope himself at some point, right? It's kind of hard to gauge after this first episode how the story might play out. So I might need a few episodes in terms of the major long-term plot points. But yeah, I could see Dr. Tenma also breaking bad. The possibility is there, right? This also almost kind of takes me back to that passage in the opening. Fascinating choice to open this anime in that manner. So it's kind of touching up on the notion of the monster being in power, or the beast being afforded that power, or the monster being afforded that power, and then of course the notion of the beast having influence or being in charge, right? It's already kind of hinting at that, and I see that throughout this episode. But also another angle that I took out of this is the final few lines of that passage. Who is like the beast and who can kill it? That stood out to me, right? And the thing I took out of that is, to kill the monster, you must think like the monster. You must become the monster. The devil is in the details. That's the kind of tone I was getting from that. So yeah, it's you could take a lot out of that. And then of course that is followed up by the ominous, the oppressive low-angle shot of the hospital. I mean, it's crazy, twice I see the hospital presented in that manner. That it's this really dark place. It's this looming presence, that there is something dark about this place. So yeah, and it almost kind of checks out at the end there, because it's really, really on the nose, I suppose, right at the end there. They are trying to communicate that maybe, this girl might go on to become a murderer herself, right? That she might go on to kill. She's been traumatized, right? So you see, it's almost as if a monster was born there. And that earlier shot, that ominous shot of the hospital, almost kind of being presented as hell, right? And I mentioned those horns, right? The structure of the building, but that framing made it look like there's horns on that building. I don't know, maybe I'm overanalyzing this, but that's my initial thought on it. But yeah, I do say that it might be a little bit too on the nose there. There's also a strong possibility here that maybe it's a bit of a misdirect, because there are other possibilities. I shouldn't get too ahead of myself just yet. Condemning this young girl. Perhaps she'll get help, and maybe she isn't going to go down that path of killing. But yeah, the question remains how it might affect these children. The long-term psychological effects on both of them. So yeah, another thing that's a bit of a standout is, the moment those officers go in there and they come across the girl, she's standing above her brother, right? She's standing above her brother, almost as if she possibly could have done this or attacked him. I don't know. It's just the framing of that in her proximity to her brother's body, right? She's like right up in there. So I don't know. There's something really fascinating at play here. And one thing that really stands out to Tenma and to me as an audience member is something Eva said at dinner, right? Not everyone is made equal. And that really kind of gets Tenma, really gets him thinking, and it's been on his mind right up until the end, until his big choice. But the thing is, if you do kind of look at it from that perspective, some people do make a bigger contribution to society than others. I know, I'm going down a slippery slope, but let's go there. Let's try to look at it from their perspective, Eva and her father, and people of that ilk, and how they really think, right? And if that is the case, and even if it is morally quite shady, then you can kind of understand how they kind of go about, being content with these choices, being okay about certain people getting priority over others. But yeah, if you do kind of stick to that train of thought, then you can see how they arrive at that choice of putting their best surgeons on high-profile clients or patients, right? It kind of checks out that train of thought. So that aspect of it is, I I don't know. It's kind of in the gray area for sure. But the thing that they're clearly kind of messed up on, and they're more than happy to kind of delay. But they did delay the Turkish man's surgery in order to get Tenma over to the opera singer, and that ultimately led to that man's death, right? Because it delayed the surgery, the procedure. And I believe they said Dr. Becker was on that case after Tenma had to switch over to the opera singer. So, Dr. Becker, he's a bit of a goof from the looks of it, not the greatest doctor out there. But, the thing is, you see that the director didn't care one bit about this really complex surgery that Tenma was about to perform, or initiate at least. He completely just disregards it. That's one of the things that was really quite clear about this man, right? He's really nonchalant about life. He's really nonchalant about making those choices, the disregard for certain life, right? Really quite cutthroat, like I mentioned. And he said, I believe the name of the doctor, the other one, Dr. Boyer, I think. He even goes on to say, I've got Dr. Boyer and another one on standby for insurance, something along those lines, right? So he doesn't even care to say, no, I'll send one of them over to your surgery. No. The entire focus is on the mayor because of the political aspect of it, because the mayor is an asset, right? Towards the direct growth of his own position, the director that is, and the hospital itself, funding and all that, right? At one point he said something like, "Cannot let him die just yet," right? But yeah, the director is some character, isn't he? He's in the same conversation. He's going on about being scholars, us being scholars, right, or them being scholars. But then in that same conversation, he's also canceling Tenma's research and funding for that research, right? It's like, huh? But yeah, I think I'm really quite dialed in already, and I'm excited. I mean, maybe excited is not the right term. I am really, really quite interested in seeing how this choice is going to play out, the fallout, the butterfly effect, perhaps, of that choice he just made. Let's see. But yeah, in terms of the production side of things, yes, I was really enjoying the score, right? Really, really fits the moody and eerie, dark tone of it all, right? There's a sense of dread throughout that episode, right? The only time there's a bit of a release is the closing, or the ending song. There is a bit of a release, even though it's kind of, matched up with some kind of children's fairy tale monster in the forest, right? But the song itself, it's really quite mellow in comparison to the tone of the first episode and to the tone of the opening. I didn't actually see the opening itself, but I did listen to it. Yeah, really, really falls into the same tone, doesn't it? But yeah, these things I'm mentioning right now, eerie, dark, oppressive, that sense of dread, that's the kind of thing that really pulls me in. It always has. There is something attractive about that to me, and I'm sure to many of you as well. And I've stated that before. But yeah, it is something that drags me in. But yeah, solid first episode. Really quite exciting to finally begin this anime. For a long time, it really felt like it could take some time before I get to this. But it's here. It's here now, and I'm into it now, right? So. Strap in, folks, strap in. I'm really quite excited, and I hope that you're excited for this as well. So if you enjoyed this, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're interested in full length, timer-based full length, of course, no footage included. You just kind of bring your own footage and then you just sync it up. Or perhaps early access to the next few episodes right now. Consider checking out the Patreon page and possibly supporting the channel as well if you really do enjoy the content. The links are in the description and the pinned comment. Also links to social media, things like Twitter and Instagram. I'm probably a bit more active on Twitter, so check that out, and you can support the channel just by dropping a follow on Twitter, right? It really helps kind of expand that reach, and yeah, that's always helpful. It really is. But yeah, thank you once again for joining me, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is. And I do hope to see you again soon for episode 2. Until then, take it easy.